Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Slime Boss here, and welcome back to Fairy Fountain News. I'm your host, Slime. Fuck. Good evening, and welcome back to Fairy Fountain News. I am your host, Slime Boss, and welcome back. It's been a couple of weeks. You probably noticed I look a little different. I got a little Mario cosplay thing going on today, and I'm here at 1 a.m. in the morning giving you guys what you need, which means this video is going out on Patreon like I always say it will. I believe I used to have these episodes coming out on Saturday. They're going to be coming out on Sundays now. Recorded on Friday, released on Patreon on Saturday, and released fully on Sunday. And if you haven't seen it already, this episode is always brought to you by their sister show, the Crazy Cat Podcast, because this week we visited, what sort of, like Switch 1 ports do we still want coming. So like any of the games from the past coming to Switch 1 as like a basic port. Not really like, maybe even at the very least like remasters, right? So we got that coming up on the pipeline. That was on Wednesday. And also, again, if you're a subscriber on Patreon, you also get access to Crazy Cat Podcast an entire week early. So you also got access to our Switch 2 editions discussion as well. Don't want to get too into that because, again, you got to be a subscriber. Again, at the $1 tier, you get access to exclusive content as well as content early. So check out our Patreon if you have not yet already. Next up, on Friday, I had my full unboxing of the Nintendo Switch 2, which is mostly what we're going to be talking about today. Like pretty much the ins and outs of it, and I missed a few weeks, so we'll talk about some of the debacle that has been gone on about the Switch 2 as well. And Saturday, little bit of a spoil. Well, I guess it's coming out at the exact same time, but we have a brand new series cooking up in terms of the Doom of the Dark Ages, welcoming Noah's very first series, so that's very exciting. I hope you guys are just as excited for that as I am. I think the series is going to be fantastic. So anyways, we got a lot cooking, we got a lot coming down the pipeline, so I hope you guys are just excited as I am. But let's get into the news before we get into the news this week, actually, we have a word from today's sponsor. Hey, are you like me, a gamer, and just always tired all the time? And maybe you come home from work and want to get a few extra sessions on the game and you just can't get yourself to do it. Well, might I recommend you Dubby. Dubby is a jitterless energy alternative that has tons upon tons of different flavors. If you're like me and you're just an avid coffee drinker, you realize that the money starts to add up. It's just, you spend over $200 in a week. It's absolutely insane. Or maybe you just don't really like the flavor of energy drinks. Well, that's where Dubby comes in. Dubby has tons of varieties of flavors, and they're all really good. I can tell you because I've been trying all of their flavors that they currently have out right now. On top of that, they have their current flavor, which I'm going to show on screen right now, as well as many others, such as Japanese soda that I have right here, including collaborations with Solo Leveling as well. I couldn't recommend Dubby enough. They've been helping out the channel for just a little bit now. So if you're like me, a gamer, and need some extra energy, might I recommend you Dubby. And on top of that, speaking of spending $200 a month, if you use our code CrazyCap or clicking the link in the description below, you'll get 10% off of your order. That's code CrazyCap, CRAZY, no space, CAP. At Crazy Cap, you get 10% off of your order. And with that, let's get back to the video. Alright, like I said before, this podcast or this episode will be pretty much dominated by the Switch 2 talk, but there was a state of play this week that I want to talk to you guys about. Just a couple of the highlights. Looks like we're still getting more content for Astrobot, which is always great. Love to see it because I really do enjoy Astrobot. That was a great game, but honestly, at this point, if they just put so much development time and manpower into it, you might as well get a sequel at this point. I mean, I don't think anyone wouldn't mind a just more Astrobot, because right now they're putting it very simply. It's just speedrun levels, or challenge levels. So it would be nice to have like a traditional core experience again. That would be pretty awesome. Next up, a couple of things that stuck out to me. I'm not gonna go through everything, just because I want to make it a quick episode today, just the first episode back. We have a brand new classic Ninja Gaiden game, which is absolutely crazy. If you don't know, the Ninja Gaiden series actually started all the way back on the NES. And it was a 2D side-scroller, tough as balls platformer, as like your Mega Mans and your Castlevanias, something like that. Eventually, on the Xbox 360, it got rebooted into into like what it's known as now. And we also even recently got Ninja Gaiden Black 2 Black, which was a remake of one of the 3D games as well. So getting both in a modern timeline is absolutely incredible. I haven't played any games myself, but I respect the series because, again, it's one of those classic NES titles as well. Again, and we're getting one of those types of games like the 2D side scroller, which is pretty cool. The next thing that kind of is highlighted there is the Ghost of Yotoi, which is the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, and we are getting an entire state of play directly about that in the future. So we didn't get too much here, but we're getting an entire dedicated state of play just for that. We also had Summer Games Fest started today as the time of recording this, so I will be covering Summer Games Fest next week. If there's anything that that's of note to talk about there, probably not, but it started today, so I don't want to actually include that in today's video. So videos will typically go Friday to Friday. So any news that happens on Friday, I might cover it, might not. If not, it'll be covered next week. So far, nothing too important, but it's an entire like weekend, or I think even week. So, and also it's the month of June, so it's that typical E3 season. We're likely to get like a Nintendo Direct pretty soon. And speaking of Nintendo Directs, we're also getting a Pokemon Presents sometime in July, so we'll be covering that as well later down the line. And finally, the last thing that they showed off, which I was absolutely blown away by, was we are getting a brand new Arc System Works game, which, if you don't know, are people that made like Blaze Blue and most importantly, Guilty Gear. They're making a super flashy, super cool looking tag team based Marvel fighter, which, again, if you don't know, Marvel and fighters have a lot of pretty deep connection and deep relationship, and especially back in the arcades and stuff like that. So having an Arc Systems collab with Marvel is a really, really big deal if you're in the know. If you're not, again, like me, I'm not going to be picking this game up, not super in the know, but I'm aware of like the fighting game scene, and I know that this is a very, very, very big deal to have Arc System Works working on a Marvel game. Alright. That's pretty much covers it for the regular news. We can talk about the releases if you want, but you pretty much know everything. The Switch 2 came out, so the Switch 2 coming out, which included Mario Kart World, as well as the two Switch 2 editions of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Cyberpunk, and Deltarune Chapters 3 and 4, and again, tons upon tons of other games that you should definitely check out if you have not already. But I have gotten my hands on the Switch 2 right here. It's very snazzy. I love it a lot. I just really love the build quality more than anything. It just feels so tactile, and again, it's really, really good. I don't really know, like, it feels different. It feels next gen, really. It truly does. Now, I wanted, because I haven't recorded an episode in quite some time, I wanted to go ahead and talk about some of the debacle that's been going around with the Switch 2. Again, if you haven't already, I did a full unboxing and live reaction of like firsthand of everything. So if you want to check that out, I'll leave a link in the description below of that. But in terms of like, again, it's been a couple of days since I've had it in my hand, so I can give you guys a little more of a raw impression as well, which I just did. I will talk about Mario Kart World a little bit more in just a moment, but I want to first talk about some of the debacle that's been going around regarding Switch 2. Number one, let's talk about the price. So first things first, people are up in arms about how it's $450 for something that's not even that new. Again, if you haven't actually held the Switch 2 in your hands, I think you'll understand and pretty much justify the $450 price point. First of all, again, feels very premium, feels very worth the price totally in hardware itself, but it's a video game. It's not just hardware, it's software as well. And man, playing Breath of the Wild in 60 FPS, or even I think it's even in 120 in handheld, is absolutely mind-blowing, and people are going to be picking this up to replaying it. And it's so Breath of the Wild and sometimes even Scarlet and Violet are really showpieces of like how much of a step up this console really is compared to the Nintendo Switch, because you have to realize that Nintendo kind of goes on and off in terms of like what how much more powerful a console is. And like if you look from like the jump from GameCube to Wii, not that really that big of a deal. But going from Wii to Wii U, well, that was a substantial jump. But going from Wii U to Switch, not so much again. Now jumping from the Switch to the Switch 2, even though it's pretty much in the same type of architecture, I'm just blown away by how powerful this system really is. And again, it's not something that you can look at firsthand and be like, oh, they didn't really do a whole lot with it. Well, again, you have to play it in order to fully get the entire experience of what the Switch 2 actually brings to the table. And also, again, Mario Kart is not a very good showpiece for the new capabilities of the hardware. Again, the open world nature and 24 characters, I guess you can say that. And again, keeping that locked frame rate is really good, but like it doesn't look anything spectacular compared to like Mario Kart 8. It's definitely more of a stylized game, and again, you wouldn't be able to tell unless you're looking at the vibrant colors and like again, if you're someone that notices the difference between 120 and 60 frames per second. So again, if you are that person, then you could probably appreciate Mario Kart World a little bit more for that reason. But overall, again, in terms of like the price, like from a hardware perspective and a software perspective, like this truly feels next gen and 100% worth the price of $450. However, Mario Kart World is where I start to draw the line. I did pick it up physically, which I was going to be doing anyway, but $80 is a stretch. Like, obviously they can do it because they know that it's going to sell a lot, and it's perfectly understandable that they are. However, the problem that I have with Mario Kart World is that it doesn't. I was waiting for that justification of what the $80 price point was for, and I was like, oh, they're definitely going to explain to us what the $80 price point is going to be coming from with the Mario Kart World Direct. If anything, they'll give us a live service plan where a majority of the live service stuff is going to be free. They didn't do any of that, and they only showed two things that were relatively new in the Mario Kart World Direct. And after playing it for quite some time, I still don't see the value in $80. Now, we're going to have a full review of Mario Kart World pretty soon. I'm not the one reviewing it. That's why I'm giving my thoughts here. And again, so far, amazing step up for Mario Kart. Like, this is truly it truly is like a really good Mario Kart game. In fact, it's one of my favorites now. But it's all it is an iterative Mario Kart. Like, you take two steps forward and one step back. Like, obviously the open world nature is really good, the graphics are amazing, and oh my god, the music is absolutely incredible. But there's some things that I'm like it just seems so weird that it's omitted from here. Like, for example, there's significantly less tracks than there typically would be because there's a couple of repeats, and if there isn't repeats, there are tracks that solely rely on the world aspect of going from one track to another. And initially I was like, oh, this is really cool, you'll be able to go, you go around the track and then you just keep going. But no, it actually is 4 races that are separate and have like a clear hard cut line. Now obviously you'll get a different experience with Knockout Tour, which is really cool. That is something that is new, and that's really a cool feature. The only thing is that you don't really get to appreciate the tracks that you're driving by because you go through it and just make a beeline out of there, and it's mostly spent on the straightaways and the random open world that's pretty much largely empty. So again, Knockout Tour is really fun for what it is, but again, you don't get to appreciate the tracks as much, both in Knockout Tour and also even in Grand Prix. And what I was trying to get to is that there are some tracks, like I think it's called Peach Stadium, because there's one in the Special Cup called Peach Stadium, but you also travel to Peach's Castle in another cup. I just can't remember what it is, but I feel like that track unfortunately was like sacrificed for the sake of the open world, and the majority of the track is spent actually traveling to the track, and that's what I don't like about it. I don't like traveling to the track and then only doing one lap of the track. It kind of, you don't really get to experience the track. In the case of the Peach's Castle track, you go there and it's like a loop around and that's it. It's not even a full track. Again, it seems like the most of the experiences in that open world, which is really boring because it's empty, it's barren, and it's a lot of straightaways, which is also probably why they gave you the jump ability, because there's a lot of straightaways in there. I also am not really a huge fan of the whole wave race ability. I think it's cool for certain tracks, but tracks like Wario Shipyard unfortunately really suffer from that because it's the whole entire level is kind of meant to be a showcase for the underwater abilities in Mario Kart 7. So having that completely omitted makes the track completely different. And then sometimes they're like, "Oh yeah, this is Choco Mountain." That's a stretch. It barely resembles Choco Mountain. I do love, again, on the other side of the spectrum, I do really love what they did with Mario Circuit, because that is like a combination of multiple Mario Circuits, and I really do appreciate that. I thought that was a really cool twist on the whole thing. But Choco Mountain is like far from Choco Mountain. And Wario Stadium, even though it's nice that Wario Stadium is back, again, far from what Wario Stadium actually is. And it's a really long track in N64, but it's not even like, it is a complete like overhaul of like what Wario Stadium is, and it's cut entirely short. So sometimes they'll say, "Oh yeah, it's this track," and then it's like completely neutered into what, like, it's not even like the same. I love the glow ups like Snowland and Mario Kart 8 booster pack, but again, that was a really nice glow up, and it felt like the original course. And even Bowser's Castle from, I think it's SNES on BCP as well. That one is a good, or the original track. If you really look at it, it's the original track. They just added extra things because it's in the new engine, right? They added more, and the otherwise, like, Choco Mountain is like completely resembles what it actually is, and it's like barely Choco Mountain anymore. And another again, two great examples of amazing remasters, especially fitting it into the open world. DK Pass and Airship Fortress. Those two are quickly becoming some of my favorite tracks because they were taken almost like when you play through, you're like, oh yeah, this is the track I remember from DS. And what's crazy is that you go turn around and then you do another track from DS, which is Desert Hills, and it looks nothing like the original. Like, it's completely unresembles what that track originally was, and it's kind of weird how they picked and chose certain things, and they had to sacrifice a lot of things to fit it within the open world. So yeah, overall, I love the game. It's really fun. There's a couple of things I don't really like about it, but that's, neither here nor there. But does it really justify the $80? Not really. Nothing about the game screams like, oh yeah, this is like, leagues, ahead of what the other Mario Karts were doing. It's just iterative, which again, that's to me $60. Not even like the new traditional $70. Like, nothing about Mario Kart World is screaming, anything crazy. Alright, next up is the next complaint that a lot of people were having was the game key cards. And unfortunately, as much as I don't like the game key cards just in general as a person that, plays or buys games physically, luckily it's not affecting any of the first party stuff, which then I wouldn't have to worry about because I would be getting them digitally anyway. But what is a little bit cool about it is that the game key card will stay like your downloaded copy. Like, you obviously need the cartridge to know that the game is being like able to run, like it's the license to the game, right? But you can easily loan that game out to anybody and let them play, just like if it was a physical game. Fortunately, you'll just have to wait for it to download. Again, mostly not going to affect me because it's not going to be games that I'm going to be purchasing anyway. And again, sometimes I look at games that are game key cards like Bravely Default, and I look at it, I'm like, you definitely could have fit that on the cartridge. Like, I don't know why you're being incredibly lazy with this. It's really dumb. Some of the, like, and you look at Bravely Default and how that's barely even a remaster, and then you compare that to Cyberpunk and how they fit that on a cartridge. Like, it blows my mind. Like, some of the game, like Street Fighter 6, I get it. That makes sense. That needs to be on a game key card, but Bravely Default doesn't even look that good, and it's somehow on a game key card. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So there are positives, there are negatives, but again, mostly doesn't affect me because I'm not going to be buying those games physically anyway, and if I did, I'll probably get them digitally. Again, the games that are affected by this game key card. The other thing is that I bet you didn't know that most PlayStation 5 and Xbox games nowadays, starting about maybe the beginning of the last gen, like PS4, a lot of those games aren't even on the disc anymore, and those games have to be downloaded anyway. So you've been indoctrined into this system a long ass time ago. Nintendo's just hopping on the bandwagon now. It's been a thing for a while, and mass majority of games have to be downloaded on the other platforms, so there's not really a difference there. Again, unfortunately, Nintendo Switch is still using cartridges, which is unfortunate, just because again it's the form factor. Like, otherwise it would just be an all digital system. So it is unfortunate that the form factor is that way, but even the discs nowadays aren't even holding all of the content onto one disc, let alone two, because I remember apparently the PS1 had multiple discs sometimes, but in this case it, it's only one cartridge, but you still have to download it. So again, you've already been indoctrinated into it anyway. And the last thing that people were complaining about is the launch lineup. Realistically, the only new game that we got, it was Mario Kart World. Everything else is ports or remasters or some kind of thing. In terms of first party, again, literally only Mario Kart World, and that is a problem actually, because again, the next game that we're realistically getting is Donkey Kong Bonanza. If you want to count Jamboree TV and Starcross Worlds, those are effectively DLC to games that we already have. So the next full-blown Nintendo Switch 2 experience is going to be Donkey Kong Bonanza, and obviously we still have Legends ZA and Metroid Prime 4 to look forward to, but a lot of the other games are coming to Switch 1. And I'm hoping that they don't fall into that trap where, and with PS5, especially with that state of play, there was a ton of games still coming to PS4 5 years into the PS5's lifespan. If we have games coming to Switch 1, in 2027, we're gonna start having problems, and it's gonna have a really strong impact on the Switch 2, because no one's gonna want to buy it, because again, the big games are going to be coming to either both platforms or just the Switch 1, which I don't think is going to happen. I think, again, like Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza, like the next Zelda game will not be coming to Switch 1, right? Like those big boy games aren't going to be going, but I can definitely see the next Kirby game coming to Switch 1 as well. I'm not talking about Air Riders, and Air Riders is also coming this year. I keep forgetting that game is technically slated for this year, but it wouldn't surprise me if it ends up switching to early 2026. However, there is a remedy for this. There's probably likely going to be a direct, as I mentioned earlier in the show. There's probably likely going to be a direct at some point this month to kind of fill out the rest of the calendar for the year, which again, probably more or less 1 or 2 games coming out, and then seeing some of our early 2026 stuff, and then ultimately giving us a September direct with a full slate of some of the stuff we can expect for early to mid 2026. So I think our schedule is going to be very filled out. It's just, again, a lot of people are like, oh, it's only coming with one game, but you got to realize that it's coming with the entirety of the Switch 1 library, as well as a couple of games that you should consider replaying on this new platform as well. So there's a lot to do on Switch 2 right out the gate, especially again if you're someone that's a new adopter of the Switch and you're starting with Switch 2. You got a lot day one, which is absolutely incredible. Again, they made it a point to say, hey, 90% of games are going to be working on Switch 2 day one. There's like a handful of games that don't work. Again, there's some games that can't work on Switch 2, but there's only a couple of games that are still getting worked on, and eventually by the end of the year, all those games will be working on Switch 2, which again is a far cry from PS5, because there are some games that still don't work from the PS4, even though they're releasing games for both platforms. It's absolutely insane. And not to mention, we have the entirety of the NSO library, which is vast, and it's filled with multiple consoles from the past generations. So you get a lot, again, out the gate with Switch 2. So there's nothing to play. So again, that answers pretty much all of the qualms that people have with Switch 2. And again, if you're one of those people that are like, I don't get the price, I just explained the price to you. And if you're like, there's not really an upgrade, again, unfortunately, it's something that you have to see to believe in terms of what the upgrade is, and it's a very significant upgrade. Again, you forget, the jump from Wii U to Switch was very insignificant because there really wasn't one. The jump from Switch to Switch 2 is massive in comparison. So there you go. Anyways, that's pretty much it for today. Going forward, we're going to pretty much be covering the news like we typically do. Again, the biggest thing that happened this week was the Switch 2 launching, so I got to talk about that. If you want to see my full unboxing video, I highly recommend checking it out. Link in the description below. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys are just as excited for all of the Switch 2 content as I am. If you are, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. And if you want to help support us even further, you can check us out over on Patreon. For the $1 a month tier, you get access to exclusive content and content early. Like this show, you're probably, if you're a subscriber, watching it a day early. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.